Good morning, everybody. Could there possibly be any greater insult to the memories of Jodi Jones and Teresa Holbach than burying alive 3 innocent people by convicting the wrong people and then continuing to rubber stamp that conviction, all in order to achieve an illusion of justice? I don't think there is, but as usual, pop your comments below. We discovered that the march to the Scottish Parliament next month has sadly been postponed. Basically, the organisers are not wishing to seek the type of adverse publicity that the Rangers fans in Glasgow have managed to garner for themselves. And of course, unfortunately, there is yet more graffiti appearing, particularly between Grangemouth and Falkirk. Now, we also have a journalist called Jane Hamilton who is upset. And in the famous words of Windsor Davies, I can't help but hear his words of, "Oh dear, how sad, never mind." Jane, if you're upset, just compare with Sandra Lane, who's been looking at this for 17 years. And I'm going to quote just over a page from the book. It's in the introduction. It goes, "An accusation has been levelled at me time and again that telling this story is disrespectful to the victim and her family. I disagree. What is disrespectful to anyone is accepting, at face value, information which is demonstrably false, scenarios which make no logical sense, and gaping holes covered over to shore up weak and questionable explanations, especially when that information, those scenarios and explanations, are used specifically to bring a false sense of closure to the grieving and bereft, and at the same time to rob innocent people of their freedom. Truth-seeking is a precarious and often maligned pursuit. To be labelled a crazy conspiracy theorist, interfering do-gooder, fame-seeker, evil bitch, murderer lover, sicko. These are the reactions of many who are afraid of the truth. That fear is understandable. We believe that justice and those we trust to take care of justice for us are the very foundations on which our safety and security are built. If they cannot protect us, who can? But those who react so negatively out of fear miss the most central part of truth-seeking. It is not only to ensure the correct person has been convicted, but also to discover what really happened. In this case, to a 14-year-old girl whose death is unimaginable, and obviously the same, totally true for Teresa. That is how we sleepwalk into a nightmare situation where anyone can be convicted of the most serious crimes without any of the robust investigation, irrefutable evidence, and thorough procedures we believe are inherent in our justice processes. When I say anyone, I mean you, or someone you love, or me, or someone I love. The problem is, most of us simply cannot believe that such a thing could or would ever happen to us. In the last 15 years, I have met dozens of people who believed exactly that, until the unthinkable happened to them. At the same time, the victims and their families are sold a lie. Their closure is never complete, and sadly, too often, other families have to suffer the same devastation because the real perpetrators were free to strike again, while the lie that the correct person has been apprehended is upheld even in the face of compelling evidence that it is a lie. For 27 years, our authorities refused to acknowledge what many could plainly see was an enormous lie, or rather catalogue of lies, following the Hillsborough disaster. Such a lie was so publicly upheld officially for so long, even though the deaths of 96 people were filmed as they happened, those horrific images beaming out from TV screens across the country and witnessed firsthand by thousands of people attending a football match. How much easier would it be to maintain a similar lie when all of the evidence to refute it is gathered in private homes from people utterly overcome by grief and shock? My aim for this book is not to convince you of Luke Mitchell's innocence, but rather to expose the dishonesty, negligence, bias, manipulation, and blinkered determination that ensured his conviction. The brutal murder of a 14-year-old girl deserved better than that. Jodi deserved better than that. Teresa deserves better than that. That is why I tell this story without apology. It is a story that can't be told in any sort of linear fashion, a complex, sprawling mess of connections, inexplicable decisions, dead ends, red herrings, half-truths, misunderstandings, and outright lies. In its entirety, it is a truth which has never been told. I leave it to you, the reader, to make up your own mind, whether you think justice has been done for Jodi Jones and her family, Luke Mitchell and his family, you as a mother, father, brother, sister, partner, cousin, friend, citizen. Okay, what we simply want is that that when people in the media, such as Jade, when the documentary came out, simply report what was presented in the documentary. That's really, that there are some serious questions being asked about Luke's guilt and over in America about Stephen Brendan's guilt. That is the job of the reporters, is to report on such things. The presumption of innocence, both in Steve, Brendan and Luke's case, was completely destroyed. And of course, bizarrely, even when Luke was convicted, it was by a majority decision. It wasn't unanimous. And I should really ask the question, since when has it been the media's job and public opinion to act as the prosecutor? Well, sadly, here in Scotland, we have a long, long, long history of that. A few hundred years ago, some of you will have heard of this, it's called Jeddart Justice. They arrested some people for sheep stealing. Later on in the week, they hung them. The next week, the judge came to town and they had the trial. Over in America, in Wisconsin, 4,000 miles away, we've seen similar reporting by the likes of Emily Matasic, who simply parrots everything that the prosecution says. And we can kind of understand that, you need to have a certain friendship towards the prosecution if you're going to get the juiciest stories. But we discovered just recently in emails that Emily was actually inviting the lead prosecutor and lead detective, once Making a Murderer came out, to come over and have a watch party and enjoy loads of drinks. We've seen firsthand in Stephen Avery's case, now we're seeing it in Luke Mitchell's case, this constant, well, he's had 4 reviews. They have simply rubber-stamped the previous decision. Watch Making a Murderer. Watch what Judge Flowers, Angie Sukovich, is doing. Her level best to try not to be a judge, but to try and be an assistant district attorney. It's foxes guarding the chicken run. It's rats looking after the cheese. And in both cases, it's funny how both sets of media constantly refer to the documentaries. In the case of here in Scotland, Murder in a Small Town. In America, Making a Murderer. They refer to the documentaries almost exclusively as being slanted and biased. And they say, don't be duped by a documentary. It's slanted and biased. Well, of course, to a certain extent, from their point of view, it is biased and slanted, because they don't have any of the bias that the newspapers have. The documentary just tells the story as it is and presents what the problems are with this case. Problems that we don't want simply rubber stamped. We want a proper investigation, a proper independent review, and we want proper media coverage. That's all we're asking. Thank you, and bye-bye.